After going through this video, you will be able to explain for each, map, and filter with the help of an example. Previously, we had a look at two methods, push and pop, that are always present in every object of the type array. In this video, we will look at some more array methods, namely for each, map, and filter. Let us discuss them in detail one by one, starting with the for each loop. If you remember, in the topic 3, that is conditional statements and loops of this module, we said for each is used as a loop, but technically it is not a loop. It is basically a function and is used to iterate through arrays. You are already familiar with this code. Here, we have an array that has 5 array elements, or we can say it has to be an object. Since it is an object of type array, it contains some specific methods in which for each is another such method. So in the next line of code, we are calling the for each method and passing an anonymous function to it. Now, what does this anonymous function do? It simply takes an element and prints it. To avoid any confusion, I will again mention that here we are only calling the for each method and not the anonymous function. Now this anonymous function is called inside the for each method. Can you guess how many times the anonymous function will be called? If your answer is 5, you are right. This is because we have 5 elements in the array, so the anonymous function will be called 5 times and each time one element of the array will be passed to it. This is the reason we say that for each is not a loop but it acts like a loop. I hope that this explanation helps you get better clarity of this code. And if it seems complicated, let me explain the same code in another way. This code can also be written like this. Here, we are storing the anonymous function into the variable print element. And then we are calling the for each function here and passing this print element function to the for each function. This means for every element, we are calling the print element function and passing the elements one by one to it. This will again print all the elements of the array. So we can freely choose the way we want to use the for each method, as it entirely depends upon us, and writing in either way makes no difference. Before we proceed further, here is an exercise for you. Write the syntax for this code using an arrow function. Next, we will discuss the map method. It is also specific to array objects. It runs on an array and creates a new array as a result of passing every element of the array to a provided function. Let's elaborate this with this example and understand the code line by line. Here, we have an array numbers that has 5 elements, which are basically the numbers from 1 to 5. In the next line, we are calling the map method and passing an anonymous function to it. Note that here we are using an array function to define the anonymous function. So, what does the anonymous function exactly do? Any guesses? This anonymous function takes a number as an argument and returns its square. And how exactly does the anonymous function be called? The map method helps to call the anonymous function for every element of the array numbers. This means that the function will run for 5 times for the values 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and will return the values 1, 4, 9, 16 and 25 respectively. As we said earlier, that the map method runs on an array and creates a new array. So the values returned by the map method, that is 1, 4, 9, 16 and 25, are stored in a new array which we are storing in a new variable, squares. And finally, using these lines of code, we are printing all the elements stored in the variable squares using for each loop. So far, we have studied 2 methods in this video, that is for each and map, and I hope you have understood how these methods work. We will now discuss the third method, filter. As the name suggests, this method is used to create a filter on the elements of an array using a condition provided by the function. It then creates a new array based on the filtered elements. We will use the same code to understand the filter method, which we took during the map method. Let us make a few changes in this code. First, as we said a moment ago, that the filter method works to filter elements of an array based on the condition provided by a function. So, if we look at our code, we don't have any condition. So let's add one. Suppose we want to print only those array elements that are even. So, we need to make modifications in our code accordingly. First, we need to change the way we are defining the function, because initially, this function was taking the argument and was returning its square. So we will update the function as x modulo 2 equal to 0. This will return only those values that are even. We also need to change the function name from map to filter. We will also change the variable name squares to say even numbers, which is more appropriate in our case. So, the values returned by the filter method will be stored in a new array, which we are then storing in the variable even numbers. Rest of the code works in the same way, which we have already discussed previously. So we will skip this part. To summarize, we discussed 3 array methods in this video: for each, map, and filter, and with the help of an example, saw how they can be used. Now, I would recommend you to try and execute all the codes explained in the video. That's it for this video. In the next video, we will explore some more concepts.